Conceive, believe, achieve.
This is former UFC middleweight champion of the world, Michael Bisping.
Paddy the Baddy here. You're listening to Combat Sports UK.
And you're watching Combat Sports UK.
I'm Cooper Burke here with Kurt Holobaugh for Combat Sports UK. Kurt, how are you doing, man?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, of course, man. We're glad to have you. Kurt, you fight in almost exactly a month tomorrow against Trey Ogden. What are you looking forward to the most about this fight?
Just looking forward to getting back in the cage. I'm looking forward to a good fight. He's a good opponent, worthy opponent. This guy's got a lot of skill. So just looking forward to seeing how I match up with a guy of his level.
Yeah, of course. Have you had to tweak anything stylistically in this part of your camp going into this fight?
No, not really. I'm just trying to get better in all aspects of the game, trying to be the best that I can be whenever we step in there on fight night. And being able to go wherever the fight goes, whether it's on the feet, whether it's on the ground, whether we're wrestling the whole time, I got to be able to do a little bit of everything.
Yeah, of course. Is there anything in particular that Trey Ogden does that stands out to you?
Not really. I think he's just pretty well rounded. There's not anything overall I think that he's super great at. I feel like he's similar to me. I don't think there's anything I'm super great at, but I'm gonna come and I'm gonna fight, whether it's on the ground, whether it's on the feet, whether we're wrestling the whole time. So yeah, like I said, man, he's a good worthy opponent, but I think there's some areas of the game that I'm a little bit better than him at.
Of course. Yeah, your last fight, it was an impressive performance in the Ultimate Fighter finale. You choked out Austin Hubbard. Talk to me a little bit about how that win felt for you.
Man, it was like huge pressure lifted off of my shoulders. It was something that I've been set out to do for a long time now, and I finally got that first win. And I feel like that's the first of many. But it was great. Anytime you can get into that cage and pull out a win, it's one of the best feelings in the world.
Yeah. What was the show in the house like? Can you give us a little bit of insight on that?
Yeah, man. I thought it was great. And it might be because, I'm sure I think a little bit different because I was able to win the show. But, I really thought that me and a lot of guys in the show had a really good time. Like I've been calling it a fighter's paradise. If you got these young guys that want to be fighters, man, that's where you want to go, right? Because you're basically a full-time fighter. You're cut off from the outside world. You basically get anything you want. You got all the tools to help you succeed and be a successful fighter. And it's really a good time and one of the best experiences I've ever had. Not the easiest thing in the world, but one of the best experiences.
Yeah, did you feel comfortable with the cameras and kind of the reality TV show aspect of it?
Yeah, that didn't really bother me at all. I kind of just set all that to the side, and most of the time didn't even notice anybody or didn't even realize anybody was standing there with a camera in your face. Just the whole time I was there, I was just kind of picturing what I'm going to be watching whenever I go back home. And then, the TUF airs on ESPN. So every time I'd walk through the door and the camera was there, man, I could just picture me watching the show on ESPN. And well, there's me walking through the door again, just getting home from training. So it was cool. It didn't bother me too much.
Yeah, of course. You've had quite the run recently. You're on a 6-fight finish streak. How's that been for your confidence when you step in the cage?
It's been great, because I've always known that, I can fight at the highest level, right? Maybe my first couple UFC runs wasn't the best success, but I fought tough guys also, so it wasn't like they was just handing me gimme guys. I fought some tough guys. But then again, once I go on the outside of the UFC and I started running through all these guys and even high level guys on the outside, I'm like, man, I know I could do this. So that I was grateful to get another chance at the Ultimate Fighter and winning the UFC contract and being back in the UFC now and being able to bring all this over on this win streak. Just gave me a lot of confidence and a lot of motivation going forward.
Yeah, is the confidence and the motivation kind of the biggest difference in this stint in the UFC as opposed to your last couple?
I really think it is. It's weird to say because a lot of people may not realize that, but man, when you come into the UFC, I mean, you're fighting the best of the best. You're fighting the best guys in the world, right? Or it wouldn't be the best organization in the world. The most highest level guys, the best in the world, and it's rough. But man, as long as you have the confidence to know that, hey, I can beat these guys, and it took me a little bit longer because I wasn't successful the first couple of times in the UFC, but then I would go on the outside and I would fight guys that have been in the UFC or had won fights in the UFC, and I'm like, man, just got to get that pressure off your shoulders. Sometimes it's a lot of pressure. You can't let that pressure get to you, but yeah, having the confidence, man, is a big thing.
Yeah, of course. Let's turn back the clock a little bit. Was it frustrating at all after your first run in the UFC, having to go through all the motions again after you only had one fight in the promotion?
Yeah, maybe, I didn't expect to have that early of an exit. I knew I was still young. I knew I was taking a chance going up and, fighting in the UFC that early, which I think I was like 26 years old or something like that. So, I mean, I was still young, right? But I was taking a chance, and I thought I put on a very exciting fight. So it kind of sucked to be released after that, which, um, I kind of went on a little run after that too, right? Because UFC always tells you, hey, go back, win a couple of fights, and we'll bring you back. So, that's what I did. But yeah, man, it kind of sucked.
Yeah, of course. Being that you've been there, done that, you've had your exits, but every time you've bounced back and come back in stronger. What advice would you give to a fighter looking to make a return in the UFC that is facing the same situation that you faced?
Yeah, man, you just gotta keep going. You can't quit on yourself, and you can't quit. If you've made it to UFC once, it's definitely possible to make it back a second time, and I'm proof of that. It's my third stint, so um, not a lot of guys make it back three times, but I never stopped. Right, I never stopped. I always kept looking for the big fights. I've always kept looking to sign with the biggest organizations outside the UFC and trying to fight all these high level guys outside the UFC. So I mean, that's really what you got to do, man. You got to seek out. You got to jump in. And now, the good thing now is there's so many shows that's airing on like Fight Pass, or there's so many shows that are on like a pay per view now with all the social media we got. So I would say now it's probably a little bit easier to get known and for the UFC to see you fighting your way back.
Yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on the head there. With all that exposure, you got to take advantage of it. You were on Dana White's Contender Series pretty early on in the show. I mean, I thought you won that fight, obviously, but it got overturned due to some hydration controversy. Did that rub you the wrong way, especially being that there were kind of gray areas that were enforced, maybe not the same way that they're enforced with other fighters? Like you kind of got the short end of the stick.
Oh, for sure. And yeah, I headlined the very first ever Dana White Tuesday Night Contender Series. Me and Matt Bassett headlined the show. I had just beaten Jay-Z Cavalcanti for the Titan Lightweight Championship, so I got an offer to go back to 145 to fight on the Contender Series. I took the fight, right, and I actually won the fight by knockout. But
Right.
like you said, there was some controversy because I did use an IV after the weigh-in. But the thing about it is, I never tried to hide it. Like even on my papers when I filled out for the doctor forms, I even said, yeah, I'll use an IV more than likely to rehydrate because right, we wasn't in the UFC, so we wasn't technically under Zuffa. So or USADA wasn't under USADA yet. We wasn't in the USADA program. So and even I thought people had told me, yeah, you're not in USADA, so you can use the IV. So I'm like, all right, cool. And then they called me, a couple of days after the fight. And really I told on myself. I'm like, yeah, I use, a little saline, whatever it's called to rehydrate, just like one bag. They're like, oh, okay, well, we're gonna have to turn this over to USADA because it was still illegal in Nevada. And I'm like, I told everybody that I was gonna do it. Like I literally checked the boxes on the paper and nobody told me nothing. So I mean, it is what it is, man. Everything happens for a reason. I do feel like that kind of killed a little momentum for me coming because I was on a good win streak again, you
Yeah.
know, beating good guys. And then I got a 9-month suspension. And then I come back and fight some tough guys and things don't go my way. But everything happens for a reason, man. So, I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah. I mean, that's probably the best way to look at it. You know, how did you kind of stay focused after that second time? You know, when you're trying to come back a third time, how did you, stay focused knowing that you knew what you needed to do?
Right. Just, man, just, I think it's the love of the sport, love of the sport. And I'm constantly around this sport every day because me and my wife, we own 2 gyms. Did I have a bunch of fighters? My kids train. My son, he's 13. He fights in a cage already. Um, yeah, he fights in a cage already. And my 4-year-old's doing grappling matches. He's already competing. So it's like I'm around this 24/7. I'm like, man, I ain't ready to hang it up yet. Maybe, okay, well, I got cut from the UFC, whatever, man. I'll go out. There's Bellator, there's PFL. Maybe I can go try to get a good contract with one of these and maybe make a little bit of money. Just, having fun fighting. And that's really what I went back to doing, is just having fun fighting, not really fighting for the money or anything like that. But that's the motivation right there. Just I'm around it every day, so I didn't want to hang the gloves up. I wanted to keep fighting, and then here we go, man. I got that Ultimate Fighter chance and took advantage of it.
Yeah. I mean, it seems like the stars kind of aligned for you there. You mentioned you and your wife own 2 gyms. Your kids are in fighting and grappling. How has that been kind of now you said immersing yourself in the sport and being fully supported by your family with this?
Um, just keep on doing what I'm doing. You're right, and it helps having all that support, right? So because I'm training right now in South Florida with Kil Cliff,
Yep.
and my wife's at home running the gyms, getting the kids up for school, fully supporting everything that I do. So I mean, it helps out in every way possible.
Yeah. Um, Kil Cliff is it's a pretty solid gym as far as UFC gyms go. There's not many better than it. What would you say is the biggest thing you've learned from your time down in South Florida?
Um, so we got to be a little bit gritty, man. It's not easy practices, So a lot of times you got a group of 40 people coming at you, man, and that's the way Sean Soriano runs that class. If you're there to spar, you are there to spar, not pity pat. So yeah, man, hands up, chin down, and get gritty.
Do you think that helps you going forward, knowing that you've already been through the fire down at Kil Cliff?
No, for sure, man. And it's you're sparring with so many different guys down here. You're grappling with so many different guys, wrestling with so many different guys. You got guys from Russia, you got guys from freaking everywhere around the world that are killers. And yeah, man, I feel like if if I make it through sparring sessions with these guys doing, you know, 5 to 8 rounds, 10 rounds sparring, I can go 3 rounds with anybody in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, Couple more questions. You had one fight in Strikeforce, and there's not a lot of people on the current active roster um, that can say that. Uh,
Yep.
what was it like? I mean, you're the first person I've ever spoken to that's been in that cage and gone through that organization. So I want to hear a little bit about that.
No, man, I actually I loved Strike Force. I thought Strike Force was awesome. Of course, that was the first biggest show that I ever fought in, right? And even when I got that opportunity, I was a young pro. I think I was 9-0 at the time. And yeah, man, my manager gave me a call and said, "Hey, man, got a good opportunity for you." I was 9-0 at the time. Looking for that next step. Wasn't quite sure if it was going to be the UFC or anything like that. And they proposed an offer that I step up and I fight the Strikeforce #1 contender Pat Healy on like a 10-day notice for a chance. And he's even like, you need to look good. If you look good and give this guy a fight, the UFC will more than likely take you. So I'm like, I'm in, dude. Let's do it. And yeah, Strike Force was great. Very similar to the UFC. I mean, you show up and you see all the big stars. Daniel Cormier, the first guy I think I walked into and seen was Jacare Souza, um, Nate Mark White. I mean, just everybody, you know. But it was cool, really cool promotion. Like I said, very similar to the UFC, but it was cool.
Yeah. Knowing that you've been around the sport for so long, I mean, like you said, you fought in Strike Force. I mean, you've been around guys like Mark Hort, Cormier, and the Diaz brothers, and that sort of thing. What's your goal going into this year?
Stay healthy first and foremost, right? Because I mean, that's one of the biggest things. Staying healthy, training smart, and stringing together some wins, man. I really want to, you know, get a number by my name. I want to be ranked in the UFC. I want to do big things, you know, support my family, try to make some good money. So I mean, that's all I want to do.
Yeah, of course. When you say stay healthy, um, what's been the biggest focus in terms of like diet or exercise? Or what's the biggest thing that you use to keep yourself healthy?
I think it's just having and owning two gyms. So I'm never out the gym, regardless. Doesn't matter if I'm in fight camp or not. I might not be training like I'm in fight camp, but I'm rolling jujitsu class 5 days a week, and I might not be rolling super hard or trying to rip everybody's arms and necks off, but it's still I'm active. So it's like I'm never sitting down. I never not train or roll with my guys. I'm rolling jiu-jitsu every night. I'm sparring at least once a week, and this is when I'm not in fight camp. I'm literally the week after. I don't even know if it was the week after. A couple of days after my last fight in Boston, when I won the show, a bunch of guys were coming down from another gym, and they're, hey, you want to spar at your gym? I'm like, bring them over. Let's spar, man. I probably sparred 10 rounds that week. So it's like I never stopped.
Oh man, that's impressive. How awesome for you is it to have your kids grow up watching you do this and them taking an interest in what you're doing?
Um, I feel like that's what keeps me going, right? I don't know if I don't know how far I would have went without having my kids backing me and my kids doing the same sport. So, and it's a lot different because even, a couple of years ago, before my kids got big enough to actually come to the fights or watch me or anything like that, or really knew what I was doing, it was a little bit different. But now that I got all of them on board with me, they're all training in the gym with me, like almost at the same times. It's it's different, man, but it's good motivation and it keeps me young.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Kurt, thank you so much. I've had a great time. I really appreciate you doing this. Everybody, the Kurt Holobaugh fights on March 23rd against Trey Ogden in the UFC Apex. Make sure to check him out. Kurt, best of luck, man. We're all rooting for you.
Yeah, man. Hey, thanks for having me on. Good talking to you.